Wait, you started a riot over a Shakespeare play? Hi there, I'm Peyton Dixon of Historic Experience, and welcome to What the History, the only pen in the house with black ink because all the others have blue ink, and why can't you fill out the form in blue ink in the bottom of the desk drawer of history? The year is 1849, the island, Manhattan. New York City has been a place for the theater since Hamilton was on Broadway. No, not that Hamilton. Please, I portray John Adams, who does not like you very much. Please hold your... Yes. No, when I say Hamilton on Broadway, I mean the actual Alexander Hamilton on 18th century Broadway Street. Actually called it that in 1776. But it was a long way to the broad variety of ways. Theater was sporadic at best. Community play here, traveling troupe there. And for about 30 years, New York City was proud home to one theater. But by the turn of the 19th century, the small to medium-sized apple was really starting to get bitten by the theater bug. And it was not all just a high society set. Well, not at first. The pit, where you would now see the orchestra, was where the laborers, or the mechanics, would sit. Slightly better off folks were in the gallery. Upper class was in the boxes along the side. Lower class folks, as well as African Americans, regardless of their status, children, even prostitutes, up in the balcony. Something for everyone. Prostitutes were actually on duty at the time. Other story. By the 1830s, however, societal lines were being drawn, narrowing down that Broadway. Theaters like the Bowery the Bowery, to see that they could get more money by catering to the mechanics, with much more spectacle-based production. And some Shakespeare, including Edwin Forrest, an American actor who portrayed the bard in a much more bombastic fashion. Meanwhile, the wealthy were making their way further north, towards newer and more lavish spaces, like the Astor Place Opera House at Astor and Broadway. These performance halls were having their own British invasion, with the true Shakespearean actors from England very much in vogue here in the States, at least in the more well-to-do places, with their more heady Shakespearean? And in 1849, a true find, the majestic William Macready, was coming to America today! If today is spring of 1849. The triumphant tragedian was to trod the boards of the Astor Place with his mellifluous Macbeth. Unfortunately, the Bowery was already booked for Macbeth with none other than America's sweetheart, Edwin Forrest. But this is not the beginning of the story. Oh, no. This is at least Act 3. Don't worry. Cliff Notes version. Act 1 is essentially the ruminating bad blood between the British and the Americans.
War of 1812, the Monroe Doctrine, American Western Expansion, the Compromise of the 49th Parallel.
But still, not everybody feels that Anglo-American camaraderie. We have the Capulets and the Montagues of this sentiment. There were the Anglophiles, which thought that English culture, style, manner, even speaking with a British accent, was the height of propriety, while others believed that American culture was gaining ground and the rest was pure humbuggery. Unless that's a British word. Act 2, we meet our two leading men. Two actual leading men. Macready, the more cerebral performer with his Macready pause. And Forrest, the American actor of a more visceral style. These two actors had actually met before and had a fair respect for each other. Each actor had gone to the other's country to respectable receptions. Along the way, during one of Forrest's performances, an unappreciative hiss began in the audience. Forrest swears it's Macready who starts it. Macready denies it. Forrest begins, dare I say, stalking Macready at succeeding performances. At one point, in a Macready pause, a very clearly disapproving hiss comes in solo form from the audience. Many witnesses claim it's Forrest. Forrest is cornered, and he says, yeah, it was me, I did it. And I do it again. So the hiss incident obviously ruptures the leading men's friendship. And when Macready tours America, everywhere that he performs, there just happens to be a performance of the same show with Forrest in the same starring role. Now honestly, in the mid-1800s, it's not unusual. Multiple theaters with very different casts would do the exact same show at the same time. But this was more than coincidental. This was intentional. Now, we're at the beginning of Act Act 3. Pro-British and anti-British sentiment is even more pronounced, and in New York, that division gets mingled in with class faction. The more well-to-do are more pro-English, and thereby pro-Macready. The working class, including a number of Irish immigrants who weren't too keen on the Brits for reasons, are siding with Forrest. Forrest performs in the Bowery, while Macready is further north in the brand spankin' new. Why on earth would you spank a brand? Astor Place Opera House. So our two leading men become unintentional figureheads in this clash of nationality and class. To add to the schism, Astor Place is really upping the upper class. Kid gloves and white vests are mandatory dress. No single ladies. No, not those single ladies. The professional kind. This got folks in the Bowery even more worked up, and a fellow named Captain Isaiah Rinders, not Army Captain, like I piloted a boat for a while Captain, picked up the pace. He had muscled his way into leadership at Tammany Hall and saw Macready's performances as a perfect place to protest English invasion. Foreigners taking over our leadership roles and our country. Oh yeah, this turned real dark real quick. Rinders got hundreds of balcony tickets for Macready's May 7th Macbeth, and in a very good Macready pause, shouts rang out, protest banners unfurled across the front of the balcony. Rotten eggs pelted the stage. Not as bad as Cincinnati when someone threw half a sheep carcass on the stage, but still. Both pro-Forrest and pro-Max were shouting in the house. The show did go on in a weird pantomime sort of way, and Macready left the stage. He was ready to cut his tour short and head home right there. Act 4. The Anglophiles, 47 of them, including Herman Melville and Washington Irving, publish a petition in the New York Tribune begging Macready to stay, assuring you that the good sense and respect for order prevailing in this community will sustain you on the subsequent nights of your performances. Macready is moved and sends a reply, I assent to your request, honoring and feeling grateful for the sentiment that has dictated it. So the plan is reopen the show on May the 10th. Meanwhile, Rinders' second, Ned Bunteen, responds to this return with a widely distributed handbill. Working men, shall Americans or English rule in this city? We advocate no violence, but a free expression of opinion to all public men. Working men, free men, stand by your lawful rights. Meanwhile, the police chief of New York, realizing he does not have enough cops to cover this boiling pot, brings in military troops, 350 in mounted troops and artillery, along with 100 policemen come to Astor and Broadway to keep the peace. Act 5. Rinders gets more tickets, but Macready has tickets marked for the right people, a.k.a. not Rinders tickets. In fact, lots of boys from the Bowery are told the house is full, while Anglophiles are getting snuck into the opposite side and at the stage door. Pro-Forrest, anti-British crowd, reported as anywhere between 10 and 20,000 people, get unruly, trying to break down the doors, mostly getting louder and raucous and more dangerous. Police give orders to disperse, which is responded to with throwing stones and other items from the Bowery boys. When the shouting proves unsuccessful, shouts turn to shots. It goes in waves and it gets very messy very quickly. By the end of it, between 22 and 31 rioters are killed. 48 were wounded. 50 to 70 policemen were injured. 141 of the militia were injured by the various projectiles. This was one of the biggest military-civilian interventions since the Revolution. About 100 rioters are arrested, though very few are imprisoned. The class division only strengthens. Anti-immigration sentiments increase. And the two actors that are used as icons in all this, Forrest takes a break from acting for 3 years and has a sputtering career following. Macready retires in about a year and just leaves the stage and the public spotlight altogether. Now, I know this started like a sitcom and then suddenly became a special episode but this is history. Something as seemingly benign as a play can become a catalyst for major issues that barely have anything to do with the original event. And ultimately, they draw more attention to bigger, underlying problems. That is why I'm always encouraging us to learn from history, so we can make better history down the road. Thanks for watching. I promise there's more funny history left to cover. Also plenty of deeper stuff too. In fact, why not check out the playlist over here? YouTube thinks you will like this video. And be sure to like and subscribe so that you'll know when new stuff comes and other friends of history will know we're here. Thanks.